Hello everyone, welcome back to the World of English Exams. Today's video is going to be the continuation of the previous video in which I solved the first passage from Reading Test 1 of Cambridge IELTS 14 Academic. We have seen how to strategize our reading test and how to get the answers right for the first 13 questions in that paper. And this is going to be the second passage, that is part 2. We are going to come up with the third part very soon, so stay tuned to the World of English Exams for that. Now in this part of the test, we are going to solve the questions like which paragraph contains the following information. So this is matching information to the paragraph or identifying the paragraph. This is also called para matching. So we are going to see how to solve this. Then we have multiple choice questions, yet another very important question type, and here we are going to see the question type which asks us to select two correct options, not the usual one. Then we also have summary completion. So these three question types constitute reading passage 2, and we are going to see every single question of this passage in detail. So stay tuned till the end of the video. Let's get started with the first set of questions, number 14 to number 18, which is which paragraph contains the following information. So firstly we shall see how to identify this question type. Then I will tell you the process which I am approaching the question with, and then we shall get solving it together. So learn the techniques, guys, so that when you're solving your real exam, it won't be a difficult part for you. It is quite easy if you follow certain tips and strategies. So let's get started with identifying this question type. So this is what you will see when you're solving Cambridge 14 IELTS Academic Test 1 Part 2. You can see that the instructions clearly instruct us which paragraph contains the following information. And here you will notice a special instruction called NB. What does it say? NB is a special instruction called note beat, and it means you can use any letter more than once. Can you see that you need to write the answer in the form of a letter A to G, which means the paragraphs are alphabetically arranged like A, B, C, D. Then we have E, F, G. So how many paragraphs are there? 7 paragraphs are there, and from that we need to pick the right one which contains this information discussed in the statements given. Then NB means a single alphabet will definitely repeat twice. So which alphabet will repeat twice is the matter of reading. Okay, so you need to read and find that, but definitely if you find NB, it definitely means that a minimum of one paragraph will be repeated twice. So maybe 2 paragraphs can also repeat twice, but at least one is compulsory. So here we can see some statements are given followed by this paragraph which says the growth of bike sharing schemes around the world. So I do know that the font size is very less here because we have also uploaded the same passage for your clear reading on our website www.worldofenglishexams.com. So don't forget to check it out. And now we shall start with the strategy, how to answer. It's quite simple, very direct, no complications involved. Okay, just a 3-step process, that's it. So what are the 3 steps? The first step is read all the statements and mark the keywords. So here lies the trick. You have to read all the statements because it is a matching question type, and we cannot guess which paragraph will contain that information unless we read it. So instead of reading one statement and going to read all the passages, all the paragraphs, it is better for us to read and analyze all the questions and mark the keywords. So here lies the secret. Then moving on to the next step, look for the instructions if it says NB. So we have seen how to do that. Finally, read each paragraph and match it to the statements. So do not skip any paragraph because we know what we are looking for now that we have already analyzed the keywords. So this is the 3-step process with which you approach this question type, and for detailed instructions and with an example to solve this type of questions, I am giving the link for the same in the description box. You can check it out. We have already made a video on this previously, not this paragraph but with a different paragraph. Now let's get started with looking at one question after another. And what did we see? The first strategy, the first step is to read all the statements like this. So let's get reading. A description of how people misused. Guys, what is the meaning of misused? Yes, they did not use it properly, so maybe they cheated with the system or something like that. So a description of how people misused a bike sharing scheme. So here the passage already titles that the growth of bike sharing schemes around the world. Then let's look at the second question, second statement. An explanation of why indicates a reason why a proposed bike sharing scheme was turned down. So turned down means it was refused. So they put forth an idea but it was rejected. That's what it means. Then a reference to a person. So a person here means an individual, one person being unable to profit. That means he did not gain anything from that. From their work. So he did the work but it was useless, I must say. So because he did not reap the benefit out of it. Then 17th question says an explanation of the potential savings a bike sharing scheme would bring. So they are talking about the kind of savings from a bike sharing scheme. Finally, a reference to the problems a bike sharing scheme was intended to solve. So what kind of problems can a bike sharing scheme solve? So these are the different statements. If you notice, out of the 5 statements, 4 statements contain the term bike sharing scheme. So if you go on marking that as the keyword for every statement, then often you will be misled because every paragraph may contain that word. So let's start marking the keywords for the important ones. Maybe for the first couple of statements you can go with the bike sharing scheme, but not for every single statement. Okay, so let's see how to answer these questions, and this is the strategy that we are approaching the questions with. So guys, this is how we are going to solve it. But let me tell you that marking the keywords is the vital step here. That's why what I have done is I have taken a statement, given the keywords, then I have given the passage which tells us about this, so that we can clearly understand. And one more thing that is important is that you need to understand that not every word is represented in the same form. Some of the words are given in their synonymous form, that is given as their synonyms. You must be careful when you are locating these synonyms. Okay, so let's start reading. A description of how people misused a bike sharing scheme. So the keywords here are people or public or whatever it is, then misused. So that is the main meaning which has to be conveyed in the passage. So now let's read this passage. Theo Molinar, who was the system designer for the project, worked alongside Shimel Penning. I remember when we were testing the bike racks, he announced that he had already designed the better ones. Nothing about public so far. But of course we had to go through with the ones we had. The system, however, was prone to vandalism and theft. So what is the meaning of theft here? Robbery. So what happened? After every weekend there would always be a couple of bikes missing. So clearly the people did not understand the aim, the motive behind sharing the bikes, and they were thefted. Then Molinar says, I have really no idea what people, can you see that? What people did with them, because they could instantly be recognized as white bikes. So he is definitely feeling sorry and bad that people could not derive the right use of the bike sharing scheme, and they were thefted. The bikes were thefted by the people. So even though they were white bikes and they could be easily recognized, people misused that scheme. So clearly This description is given in paragraph E. Hence, the answer for this question is E. Let's move on to the next statement. An explanation of why a proposed bike sharing scheme was turned down. So in this paragraph we need to get something about proposal of a bike sharing scheme and turning it down, that is refusing, rejecting it. So let's see. Schimmelpenninck sees the opportunity to represent a more elaborate White-Feetsen plan to the city council. My idea was that the municipality of Amsterdam would distribute 10,000 white bikes over the city for everyone to use, he explained. So this was the proposal. What is that? To distribute 10,000 white bikes over the city so that everyone can use it. I made serious calculations. It turned out that a white bicycle per person per kilometer would cost the municipality only 10% of what it contributed to public transport per person per kilometer. So it was definitely a saving. Nevertheless, what is the meaning of nevertheless? However, the council unanimously rejected the plan. Can you see? A plan was proposed but instantly and unanimously was rejected by the council. Why? They said that. So here you also need to get the explanation as per what is given in the statement. It says an explanation of why they turned it down. So they said that the bicycle belongs to the past. They saw a glorious future for the car, but he was not in the least discouraged. So of course they gave the reason that nowadays nobody is using bikes. Everybody is going to use cars. That's why they turned it down. So did we get an explanation of why a proposed bike sharing scheme was turned down? Yes. Hence the answer for this is C. Of course the person who has given this idea also made some calculations about the savings, but nevertheless it was turned down. Let's proceed with the next statement. A reference to a person, one person, being unable to profit from the work. So somebody has done the work but did not derive the profit. Okay, here the keywords are a person. You need to find who is that person. Then unable, profit, their work. So let's read this paragraph. Schimmelpenninck was disappointed. Why was he disappointed? We just read that his idea of a bike sharing scheme was unanimously rejected. So maybe that's the reason he was utterly disappointed. But characteristically not for long. In 2002, he got a call from the French Advertising Corporation, GC Decax, who wanted to set up his bike sharing scheme in Vienna. That went really well. After Vienna, they set up a system in Lyon. Then in 2007, Paris followed. Wow. So his scheme was working in different provinces, and the huge and unexpected success of the Parisian bike sharing scheme, which now boasts more than 20,000 bicycles, inspired cities all over the world to set up their own schemes, all modeled on Schimmelpenninck's idea. Wonderful. So we can clearly see that that idea was successful at a different place. It's wonderful that this happened, he says. Who is that? Schimmelpenninck. But financially I didn't really benefit from it. Clearly it says that who did not really benefit? I. In this case it is Schimmelpenninck. Is it referring to one person or not? Yes. And who is that? Schimmelpenninck. And financially he did not benefit from it. So financial benefit is nothing but profit. Why? Because I never filed for a patent. So because he did not patent his idea, he was unable to financially get the benefit. But his idea was very well accepted with people in many different cities like Paris. But he did not benefit financially from it. So that is what we are looking for. And the answer for the 16th question is F. Because this paragraph contains the information. Now, I hope by now you understood what my strategy is. I have read all the statements. Now I'm searching for that one keyword which is very significant and helping me to locate the answer. Moving on to the next question, the 17th one. An explanation. Again, you need an explanation here about the potential savings a bike sharing scheme would bring. Guys, do you remember where we read about savings? Yes, so we read it in the same paragraph which says that the idea was rejected by the council. That is paragraph C. We can clearly see that the keywords here are savings and would bring. So, what kind of savings can the bike sharing scheme bring? In the one, two, three, fourth line, we can see I made serious calculations. It turned out that a white bicycle per person per kilometer would cost the municipality only 10% of what it contributed. So 90% are the savings for this. However, this idea was not a hit, but we got the answer, that is paragraph C. I hope you are clear. Now moving on to the last question in this. A reference to the problems a bike sharing scheme was intended to solve. So what kind of issues can be tackled with this bike sharing scheme? So that should be the essence of that paragraph. Only then we are going to match it to this question. Then what are the keywords here? Problems and scheme, solve. So what are the problems? Let's read this paragraph. The original idea for an urban bike sharing scheme dates back to a summer day in Amsterdam in 1965. Provo, the organization that came up with this idea, was a group of Dutch activists who wanted to change the society. Wow. So a group of Dutch activists wanted to change the society with this plan, with this scheme. They believed the scheme, which was known as a White-Fitsen plan, was the answer. Was the answer is nothing but solution. Are we getting to the context, guys? Yes. So was the answer to the perceived threats. So threats means problems of what? Air pollution and consumerism. See guys, if you analyze the keywords properly, the keyword says problems. That means you ideally need to find more than one problem. In this case, the two problems are air pollution and consumerism. So that is what is the context referring to. That's why the answer for this question is A. So now let's go back to the answers and see. This is the answer key, E, C, F, C, A. Can you see that the paragraph C is repeated twice? So that was what I meant with the instruction called NB. So if can you look at this step? Look for the instructions if they say NB, which means you can repeat any letter more than once. And what is that which has been repeated? E, C, F, again C and A. So C is repeated twice, which indicates that NB is satisfied. Like this, you need to just go back and confirm the answer, whether you satisfied the instructions or not. So this is the perfect method to get the answers right for matching the information to the paragraph which contains it. Now let's quickly move on to the next set of questions that are multiple choice questions with selecting two options. So in this case, we can definitely notice that 5 options will be given. So the perfect way to identify this is that generally whenever you come across multiple choice questions, you need to pick up just one right option, because you will see that 3 or 4 alternatives are given to you. But if this is a special type of question which is unique for IELTS, you can see that there are 5 options, A, B, C, D, E. And you can see that in the instructions you have to choose 2 letters from A to E. So question number 19 and question number 20. So 2 answers for 2 questions from 5 options which are listed. So this is how you identify this. And again, question number 21 and 22 also belong to this category, wherein you need to select 2 letters. If you are not reading the instructions properly, there comes the trouble, because you will select just one option and proceed, and you will not get the right answer for the next question. You may miss the flow, and ultimately everything it leads to a confusion. Let's not confuse with it. And now I'm going to tell you the strategy for multiple choice questions. And the best thing is that, guys, you can approach any multiple choice question with this, be it selecting one option or 2 options. You can approach it with the same strategy. So let's see what that is. Okay, so how to answer? It is just a 4-step method. Step 1, Read the instructions carefully. We have done that already. So instructions are going to tell us whether we need to pick one correct option or two correct options. So in this case it is two correct options. Then moving on to step 2. Step 2 is the basic thing which you need to do, guys, because strategic time management is the key here. So step 2 says read the question, not the option. So I have come across many students who waste their time reading the options at the beginning, but I advise them not to do. Not that it is wrong, you can do that as well, but I would suggest to go just with the question and then later confirm the answer, because not all the options may be seen in the text, and definitely we are wasting time in marking the keywords in the options. So what I generally do is I just read the question and directly I will read the related context. Because I mark the keywords in the question, I will know what I am looking for. So directly I'll go to the text, I'll read it carefully, then in the fourth step I will select the correct option or options, depending on whether I need to select one right option or two right options. Guys, follow this strategy and you will see a noticeable improvement in your performance in multiple choice, particularly if you're facing a problem. So let's see what that is and how to approach this question type with this. Okay, so now question number 19 and 20. Choose two letters A to E and write them in the boxes in the answer sheet. Okay, then let's read the question only. I'm not reading the options. I'm sticking to my 4-step plan. So which two of the following statements are made, okay, in the text about Amsterdam bike sharing scheme of 1999? So what is the keyword? What are the keywords here? Amsterdam scheme and 1999, which is a very easy keyword to find. Amsterdam is a proper noun, so it will not change to any other province, any other city. The next one, 1999, also will not be synonymized. So two keywords are very easy to find. Now let's quickly read the text for that. I am just reading it. In the Netherlands, and this time he succeeded in arousing interest. Nothing about Amsterdam, nothing about 1999. Yes, can you see that in the fourth line, last word here? 1999 in Amsterdam. Okay, so now let's read this paragraph. And in this time he succeeded in arousing the interest of the Dutch Ministry of Transport. Okay, let's read from here. Times had changed, he recalls. People had become more environmentally conscious, and the Danish experiment proved that bike sharing was a real possibility. So what is the first provocating thing? What is the first successful factor for this? People had become more environmentally conscious, so they preferred bikes over cars. Preferred bikes to cars because they understood the environmental benefits of using a bike. Then what happened with this? A new Witte-Wittselfen plan was launched in 1999 in Amsterdam. However, riding a white bike was no longer free. It cost 1 guilder per trip, and payment was made with a chip card developed by the Dutch bank Postbank. Okay, so Schimmelpenninck designed conspicuous, sturdy white bikes locked in special racks which could be opened with the chip card, and the plan started with 250 bikes distributed over 5 stations. So what is conveyed through this? First of all, the main factor due to which this plan was started is because people had become more environmentally conscious. Okay, then it also is telling that in this scheme, as per this scheme, you need to make a payment of 1 guilder per trip, and that is not in cash. It was through a chip card which was developed by a Dutch bank. And how many bikes were there in this plan? 250 bikes distributed over 5 stations. That means each station had 50 bikes. Then Theo Molinar, who was the system designer for this project, worked alongside Schimmelpenninck. I remember when we were testing the bike racks, he announced that he had already designed better ones. But of course, we had to go with the ones we had. The system, however, was prone to vandalism and theft. Earlier we have read this when we were matching the information that people misuse this scheme. And we have also read that a couple of bikes went missing every weekend. I really have no idea what people did with them, because they could instantly be recognized as white bikes. But the biggest blow came when the post bank decided to abolish the chip card. So which, because it was not profitable, so though the system started with a great success, then immediately what happened, people misused it, and the bank also withdrew the support because it was not profitable. So the chip card was pivotal to the system, Molinar says. To continue the project, we would have needed to set up another system, but the business partner had lost interest. So finally, the final blow came when the partner in the business lost interest. So now let's go back to the options and select the correct ones. Remember, you need to pick 2 correct options. It was initially opposed by a government department. Did we read anything about government department? No, that's not related to this particular scheme. It failed when the partner withdrew support. Is it correct? Yes, so we did read that in the last sentence. Then C, let's look at C. It aimed to be more successful than Copenhagen scheme. Did you read anything about Copenhagen scheme? So this is not the correct option. It was made possible by a change in people's attitudes. Yes, obviously people became more environmentally conscious. So B and D are the right options. Option E says it attracted interest from a range of designers. No, so we did not read anything that so many number of designers were interested in the project. So E also seems to be unfit for this. So like this, when you focus on the question and later come back to the options, here is how you can save the time, guys. Otherwise what happens, you read all the options unnecessarily, and we haven't seen the context related to 3 options out of 5. So clearly this is the strategy which will work, and the answers are B and D. You can write them in either order, so that you can write B in the 19th blank in the answer sheet, and D in the 28th blank. Else you can write D followed by B. Anything is fine, but remember, you need to get both the options right. If you get one option wrong, then you will lose marks for that. But there is no negative marking, fortunately, in the IELTS test. So you need not worry even if you pick the wrong option for once. But don't pick the wrong option, because the strategy is very simple. The approach is very direct. So why to lose marks for this? Now moving on to the next set of questions. Which 2 of the following statements are made about Amsterdam today? So here the keywords are Amsterdam again and today. So today is nothing but recent developments, current improvements, what is happening right now, something like that. Okay, so now let's read which paragraph is talking about that. In Amsterdam today, can you see that? Yes. So in Amsterdam today, okay, let's read. 38% of all the trips are made by bike. So obviously they are encouraging people to use bikes. So it has become a bike friendly city, and definitely because 38% of the trips are made by bike, the city is very welcoming towards cyclists, that is people who ride bikes. And along with Copenhagen, it is regarded as one of the 2 most cycle friendly capitals in the world. Again, it's telling that people in Amsterdam are now welcoming the culture of using bikes. Okay, so this is one idea that we got about what is happening in Amsterdam today. But the city never got another Witte-Fitsen plan. Molinar believes this may be because everybody in Amsterdam already has a bike. So there is no requirement of a bike sharing scheme because everybody has their own bike. So Schimmelpenninck, however, cannot see this changes Amsterdam's need for bike sharing scheme. So he is actually thinking that yes, even though people have their own bike, the need for this bike sharing scheme is never gone down. Why? People who want to travel on the underground don't carry their bikes around, but they need additional support to reach their final destination. So there are people who commute to work, and for them they require bike sharing schemes. So although he thinks it is strange in a city like Amsterdam does not have a successful bike sharing scheme, and he is optimistic about the future. So in the 60s we did not stand a chance because people were prepared to give up their lives to keep cars, but the mentality has changed. Today everybody longs for cities that are not dominated by cars. So it's a very much welcome change, is what the person says. He's telling that first of all people have their own bikes, and along with Copenhagen, even Amsterdam is regarded to be the a cycle friendly capital. And even though people have bikes, because they need to commute to their work, they definitely require a bike sharing scheme. So that's why he is optimistic for the future. Now let's go back and select the correct options. The majority of the residents would like to prevent cars from entering the city. No. So in the 60s it was like that, but now it's not like that. So if you don't underline the word today as the keyword, this is the harm. Then there is a little likelihood of the city having another bike sharing scheme. No, nothing about that, but he's hopeful. But there is nowhere we read that there is a chance, there is a likelihood for another bike sharing scheme. More trips in the city are made by bike than any other form of transport. Did we compare bike transport with any other forms of transport? Clearly no. So the first three options are eliminated straight away. So the last two must be the correct options, but let's see. A bike sharing scheme would benefit residents who use public transport. Yes, because they need some other form of transport to travel to their final destination. That's why D is the correct option. Then city has a reputation as a place that welcomes cyclists. Yes, it is included among the two most cycle friendly cities. So option E is also the right option. So what are the two correct answers? D and E. So this is how you answer multiple choice questions. I hope you find it I hope you understood the technique, and hence you found it very easy. So this is the answer key. And you can write, as I told you, you can write this in either order. So now let's look at the last set of questions for this passage, which is summary completion question type. Summary completion question type is again a very important one for both academic as well as general. The strategy here is very simple. You're going to answer them just like any other fill in the blank question type, by reading and by predicting the correct answer. So let's see. Choose one word only. So for all these questions you need to answer them in one word only. So if you have watched my previous videos on summary completion, you would definitely understand why I am focusing on the instructions. But if you haven't watched the previous detailed video of summary completion, not to worry, I am going to give it in the description box as a link, so you may just check it out. So what is the title? The first urban bike sharing scheme. The first urban bike sharing scheme. So initially, so it may be in the first paragraph. So let's continue from there. The original idea for an urban bike sharing scheme. So did you get that? Yes. So the first urban bike sharing scheme means the original idea for the urban bike sharing scheme. Okay. So was the idea of a Dutch group Provo. Where did we find the word Provo? Dates back to a summer day in Amsterdam in 1965. Provo. What is Provo? An organization that came up with the idea. Okay, so what happened in the statements? Let's see. The people who belong to this group were dash. So what are those people? So Provo, the organization that came up with this idea, was a group of Dutch activists. So who were those people? Activists from Dutch. So here we got the answer, Dutch activists. Now let's insert the word Dutch activists and see. But the instruction says one word only. So the people who belong to their group were activists. Now let me explain you why we are not writing the answer as Dutch. Because in the first sentence they already gave us that the idea of a Dutch group Provo. Again, there is no meaning if we repeat that word. Hence the answer should be activists. Okay, so they were concerned about damage to the environment and about. So there are two things that we're concerned about. We already read this paragraph, so it's not very hard for you. They believed that the scheme, which was known as Witte Fence Plan, was an answer to the perceived threats of air pollution. So air pollution is given in the form of environment damage here. And what is the second one? Consumerism. So what is the right word here? Consumerism. So the 24th answer is consumerism. And believed that a bike sharing scheme would draw the attention to these issues. As well as painting some bikes white, they handed out is nothing but they gave. So what did they give? Along with painting the bikes white in color. So in the center of Amsterdam, they painted a small number of used bikes white. They also distributed is nothing but handed out. What did they hand out? Leaflets. So what is the answer for the 25th question? Leaflets that condemn the use of cars. Okay, so that restricted, that said no to cars. Okay, so now let's continue this. However, the scheme was not a great success. Almost as quickly as Provo left the bikes around the city, the dash took them away. So somebody took those bikes away. Who were them? We have to see. Lud Schimmelpenninck, a Dutch industrial engineer who still lives and cycles in Amsterdam, was heavily involved in the original scheme. He recalls how the scheme succeeded in attracting a great deal of attention, particularly when it came to publicizing Provo's aims, but struggled to get off the ground. Struggled to get off the ground means it was not a success. And now we are going to read about somebody who took them away. The police were opposed to Provo's initiatives, and almost as soon as the white bikes were distributed, they removed them. So who removed the bikes? Police. So the answer for the 26th question is police. So this is how you answer summary completion. It is just like any other form of fill in the blanks, but what are important is to learn how to identify the synonyms, because they are the ones which are going to guide us to the right answer. Now these are the answers for it: activists, consumerism, leaflets and police. So have you understood how to solve the three different question types that we intended to solve? Which paragraph contains the following information was the first one, in which we covered what is NB and we found the answer for these. Then we went ahead to solve multiple choice questions where you need to pick up two right options, these questions. And then finally we came back to summary completion questions and we answered them with the strategy. Okay, so I hope you found this easy and helpful. So if you really liked it, and please give it a thumbs up if you found it useful, and do share this video with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel World of English Exams, because we are soon going to come up with useful videos like this which will help you in getting a high score and in your IELTS preparation as well. So thank you so much for staying tuned till the end of the video and understanding the tips and strategies. So till I see you with the next informative video, and in part 3, the final paragraph of the first reading test from Cambridge IELTS 14 Academic. Happy preparation, guys!